Nobody thinks about the ending when they start chasing power. When you're young, poor, and invisible, the future feels like something other people own. The drug lords you're about to hear about started exactly like that. Dirt roads, empty pockets, no connections, no safety net. But somehow they climbed higher than almost anyone alive. Private armies, billion-dollar empires, politicians on their payroll. For years they looked untouchable. Until the day everything stopped. Because in the drug world, power doesn't retire. It expires. And the most powerful criminals on Earth often meet endings stranger than fiction. Tonight, we're walking through the final moments of some of the most infamous drug kings ever to exist, and how their empires collapsed the second they died. But here's the question that hangs over every one of their stories. Did they lose, or did the system simply catch up? Let's start with a man who spent most of his life hiding. The ghost in the mountains. Before he became the most hunted man in his country, Rafael Ortega was just a kid picking fruit in a mountain village. School ended for him at 10 years old. By 14, he was already guarding illegal marijuana fields for men who barely knew his name. No future, no education, just a rifle and a paycheck. So when he crossed the border into the United States in his late teens, he thought life was finally about to change. It didn't. Instead, he fell straight into the drug trade. Arrested once. Then again. Then again. Each charge is a little heavier than the last. Eventually, he took the fall in a federal heroin case to protect his brother. 5 years in prison, 3 served before deportation. Most people would have slowed down after that. Rafael did the opposite. He went home, joined the police, learned how the system worked from the inside, then walked straight into the cartel world. Within 10 years, he wasn't just part of the machine. He was the machine. He built a new cartel from scratch, smarter, more aggressive, more ruthless. His organization attacked military convoys, shot down helicopters, used drones packed with explosives. Authorities placed a massive bounty on his head. But finding him was nearly impossible. Few photographs existed. He traveled surrounded by hundreds of armed guards. Entire villages were loyal to him. For years he moved like a shadow. Until one night he got careless. A birthday party. Too much music. Too much confidence. By dawn, special forces were already surrounding the compound. Gunfire exploded through the forest. Rafael escaped into the hills, wounded. Soldiers eventually found him bleeding in the brush. He died before the helicopter carrying him to a hospital even landed. Within hours, highways across the country burned with riots and blockades. The ghost of the mountains was gone. And suddenly, 100 smaller predators rushed in to fight over his territory. Which raises a question. Is it better when one king rules or when nobody does? Because the next story might change how you see that. The Opium General. Long before modern cartels, one man controlled the largest heroin network on Earth. His name was Liang Wu. And his childhood looked like something from another century. He was born in a remote jungle village. His father died when he was 3. His mother died 2 years later. His grandfather raised him with 2 lessons. Fight and grow opium. That was his education. No school. No reading. No writing. Just survival. By 16 he had already built a small armed gang. By his 20s he was training with exiled soldiers who had fled across the border after losing a civil war. They taught him military strategy. He taught them how to make money. Soon Liang Wu controlled entire valleys of poppy fields. At one point the government made him an unbelievable offer. Help us fight rebels and you can traffic opium freely. He accepted immediately. Within a few years he had built a private army of 20,000 fighters. Refineries, airstrips, convoys stretching for miles. At his peak, his organization supplied almost half the heroin entering North America. Half. The US government put a bounty on his head. But Liang made a strange counteroffer. Twice he told Western governments, "I will sell you my entire opium crop if you fund development in my region." They refused both times. Eventually rival armies closed in. And after decades of war, Liang did something almost no drug kingpin ever does. He surrendered. Not to the United States. Not to international courts. But to his own government. In exchange for immunity. No prison. No extradition. No trial. He moved to the capital city and lived quietly for the rest of his life. Luxury homes, business investments, complete freedom. He died in his bed decades later from heart disease and diabetes. No gunfight. No prison cell. Just old age. Which leads to a strange question. Is dying peacefully the biggest victory a criminal can achieve? Because the next kingpin didn't get that luxury. The Street Emperor. In the 1970s, one neighborhood in California produced a drug empire that shocked the entire country. Its architect was Marcus Hale. He grew up in public housing. Broken elevators, empty refrigerators, no way out. So he built his own ladder. At 19, he organized a street crew from his block. They called themselves the 68 Crew. At first it was small crimes. Car theft. Robbery. Street dealing. But Marcus had something most gang leaders didn't. Vision. He created a distribution network that stretched across multiple states. Branded his heroin with custom stamps. Turned children into lookouts. Paid entire communities to stay silent. At the peak of his power, his organization was making nearly $1 million a month. He drove luxury cars. Threw massive parties. And funded neighborhood programs that made him look like a local hero. When federal agents finally arrested him, Marcus told his probation officer something chilling. He said, "I like money, I like jewelry, I like nice cars, so I went and got them." To him, it was simply ambition. But the court saw it differently. Life in prison. No parole. 2 days before his 32nd birthday, another inmate walked into Marcus Hale's cell. The fight lasted less than a minute. Marcus died from multiple stab wounds over a debt barely worth $10. But what happened next shocked criminologists. After his death, violence in his city exploded. Without one powerful leader controlling the market, dozens of gangs went to war. Shootings doubled. Then tripled. Experts later called it the Hale effect. The king died. And the kingdom burned. So here's something worth debating in the comments. Does removing a crime boss actually make things safer or worse? Because the next man tried something completely different. He tried to disappear. The man who tried to become someone else. Few criminals ever built an empire as sophisticated as Adrian Salazar. He came from a farming village and left home at 12. Before leaving, he told his family, "I'll return when I'm rich." And he meant it. Adrian learned the drug trade from powerful relatives already deep inside cartel operations. By his 30s, he controlled one of the most important trafficking routes in the world. But what made him legendary was aviation. He purchased entire fleets of cargo jets, removed passenger seats, converted them into cocaine transport planes capable of carrying 15 tons per flight. Authorities nicknamed him the Lord of the Air. At his peak, his network was worth tens of billions. Politicians protected him. Military officers worked for him. And almost nobody had a clear photo of his face. But pressure eventually built. International indictments. Corruption investigations. Allies getting arrested. So Adrian made a desperate decision. He would erase himself. He checked into a private hospital under a fake name. Plastic surgery. Facial reconstruction. Massive liposuction. Hours on the operating table. But something went wrong. By morning, he was dead. Officially, complications from anesthesia. But 4 months later, the surgeons who operated on him were found murdered and dumped along a highway. Tortured. Encased in concrete. Which fueled a rumor that refuses to die. Some people still believe Adrian survived, and someone else died in that hospital bed. Nobody has ever proven it. So what do you think? Did he die on that operating table, or did he escape the game completely? Now let's talk about someone whose ending felt almost like karma. The Black Widow of the cocaine wars. Valeria Cruz had a violent reputation long before she built her empire. Stories say she kidnapped a wealthy child when she was just 11. When the ransom didn't come, she pulled the trigger. True or not, one thing was certain. Violence followed her everywhere. By her 20s, she was running cocaine into the United States using female couriers and creative smuggling tactics. Her network exploded during the cocaine boom. Money poured in by the millions. But Valeria had a habit that terrified even her allies. She killed people close to her. Husbands, partners, rivals, anyone she suspected of betrayal. Eventually, authorities connected her organization to dozens of murders. Possibly more. After years on the run, she was finally arrested and sentenced to prison. When she got out decades later, she quietly returned to her home country. For a while, nothing happened. No violence. No headlines. Just an aging woman living a normal life. Then one afternoon, she walked out of a butcher's shop. A motorcycle pulled up beside her. 2 shots to the head. The assassin disappeared into traffic. It was the exact same method she had ordered dozens of times during her career. A motorcycle. 2 shots. Gone. Some people call that coincidence. Others call it something else. The king who thought he was untouchable. Finally, we come to Diego Vargas, the most powerful criminal on this list. He started small, stealing gravestones from cemeteries, scraping off the names, reselling them, then car theft, then kidnapping, then cocaine. Lots of cocaine. By the late 1980s, his organization controlled most of the world's supply. Billions of dollars. Entire neighborhoods built in his honor. To the poor, he looked like a hero. But to governments, he looked like a terrorist. When politicians challenged him, they died. Judges died. Journalists died. At one point, a passenger plane exploded midair because Vargas thought an enemy might be on board. More than 100 innocent people were killed. Eventually, the government forced him into surrender. But even then, Diego negotiated like a king. He built his own prison. Luxury rooms. A nightclub. Soccer field. Jacuzzi. And he continued running the cartel from inside. Until the government tried to move him. Then he escaped. The manhunt lasted more than a year. Finally, one day, he made a phone call to his family. Authorities traced it. Within minutes, special forces surrounded the building where he was hiding. Diego ran across the rooftop trying to escape. Gunfire echoed through the neighborhood. When it ended, the most powerful drug lord on earth lay dead on the tiles. Thousands attended his funeral. Some even treated him like a saint. But within months, his cartel collapsed. And yet the cocaine trade never stopped. Not for a second. Every empire you just heard about ended the same way. The leader died. The power vacuum opened. And someone else stepped in. Different names. Different faces. Same business. Which leads to the uncomfortable truth behind the entire drug war. Taking down the king doesn't end the game. It just resets the board. And maybe the most interesting question isn't how these drug lords died. But why does the system that created them keep producing new ones?